Thank you. Thank you. Hello, Frimley. I can scarcely believe we're doing this. Do you know, this is now the 6th time that I've stood for the European Parliament. And of course, I was elected back in 1999. 20 years I've served over there. 20 years that I've stood up in that chamber and given my helpful, constructive speeches. I think in a funny way, I've kind of enjoyed it rather more than they've enjoyed me being there. But I honestly and truthfully really thought it was over. I thought I was the turkey that had voted for Christmas. We woke up on that beautiful morning of the 24th of June, 2016, and despite everything, despite what we'd been told, remember what Osborne told us would happen. 500,000 jobs would be gone. Foreign direct investment would collapse. Plagues of black locusts would descend upon our land. They even sent President Obama over to tell us we were going to the back of the queue. And despite all the threats, despite everything, we voted to leave. And what was significant was, of course, the government leaflet that David Cameron, remember him? Many have forgotten. He's not worth booing. You've mostly forgotten him, really, haven't you? But Cameron sent that leaflet through every home in the country, which said, whatever the result, we will implement the decision. And I kind of thought that morning, well, actually, I think this is going to happen. And then a year later, we had a general election in which Theresa May told us Brexit means Brexit. We're taking back control of our laws, money and borders. Corbyn equally said that they would respect the result of the referendum. And then 498 MPs voted for Article 50 and it went into British law. It was the law of this land that we were to leave on March the at 11 p.m. And I thought, that's it, we've won, it's done. And what we've seen ever since then is the most willful, persistent, deliberate betrayal of the greatest democratic exercise ever made in the history of this country. It is a disgrace. I could not, after 25 years of battling to get that referendum, of helping to win that referendum, I decided a few months ago that this betrayal was inevitable, that we weren't going to leave on that date, that they would just kick the can down the road and go on doing so. And I thought to myself, what do I do? Am I going to stand aside and be rolled over by this career political class? Or am I going to stand up and fight back? And I decided I would stand up and fight back, and that's why I founded the Brexit Party. And in some ways, it's been a pretty incredible journey, because we only actually launched this party 5 weeks ago. I reckon we made a pretty good start. 5 weeks we've been going, and we've managed to assemble a great team of men and women to stand for us. I hope you agree. And I think we've got them worried. I think we've got them on the run. Did you see Mrs. May launch her European election campaign the other day? There she stood with 4 of her candidates, all of whom looked like they'd just been taken hostage. It was as if they had to pay a ransom to get out. Although, of course, Mrs May's good at paying ransoms, isn't she? Because she's agreed to give Barnier 39 billion for nothing in return. Mrs May said at her press launch, I couldn't quite believe this actually. She said, Nigel Farage can't deliver Brexit. Yeah, that's right. Mrs May said Nigel Farage can't deliver Brexit. What the hell's she been doing for the last 2 years? I couldn't believe it. She said he pops up every few years and then goes away again. Well, if I've made one really big political mistake in my career, it is that I did believe when we were promised by both of those parties when it went into British law, yes, Mrs May, I admit, I made a mistake. I did not believe that a vicar's daughter could be so willfully duplicitous with the British nation as you've been. And I'm very sorry to say, Mrs May, and many in your party and the one opposite, I won't be going away anywhere soon until we change the entire British political system because it's rotten. And then today we saw Jeremy Corbyn appearing on my favourite television programme. Oh, he's really good, that Andrew Marr. You've got to give him credit. No, but pretty good, wasn't it? I mean, the weekend before a national election where there was a new insurgent party called the Brexit Party, which, if you believe the opinion polls, and let's not get carried away, let's keep running to the line next Thursday, but if you believe the polls, you've got a Eurosceptic party that is nearly 15 points in the lead. And what did Andrew Marr have on today as his guests? 5 Remainers. And isn't it the same every week with Question Time? Almost every week, it's 4 Remainers and 1 Leaver. Still, we haven't written our manifesto yet, but I have a feeling, after my appearance last Sunday, that the BBC licence fee's risen somewhat up the agenda. Right, so for the sounds of it, there's no need to focus group that one, is there? We've got that one, that one's done and dusted. But one of the guests today was Jeremy Corbyn, and I thought that when it came to the question of the Brexit Party, when it came to the question of Brexit, Corbyn looked like a frightened rabbit. 7 times he was asked, could he please explain what the Labour Party's policy on Brexit is? And he simply couldn't do so. But the truth of it is, folks, little bit by little bit, Labour's betrayal of its own 5 million Brexit voters is every bit as significant as that has been done by the Conservatives. You've got Keir Starmer. You've got Keir Starmer pushing for a second referendum. Tom Watson pushing for a second referendum. 180 Labour MPs pushing for a second referendum. But it isn't just a second referendum they're pushing for. They're pushing, as our chairman mentioned earlier, for what they call a confirmatory referendum. So that sounds nice and soft and fluffy and harmless, doesn't it? What it is a choice. That's what they're proposing, a choice between the existing European treaties and a new European treaty that would potentially bind us into the customs union in perpetuity. What they are pushing for is a referendum in which there would not be a clear, clean break Brexit even on the agenda. So maybe it's no wonder that when Corbyn is asked about me and appeared then to physically tighten, I thought. He said, oh, well, Nigel Farage has spent the entire campaign attacking European nationals who live in the United Kingdom. I haven't even mentioned them once, and nor would I, or should I, or would I have needed to. They are scared of us, and they should be scared of us because we've got some good reasons for people to go out and vote for the Brexit Party next Thursday. If we win next Thursday, and particularly if we can win big, we will put a WTO Brexit back on the table for the 31st of October. We will. Oh, yeah. And you know how they all keep talking about this second referendum? The Labour Party now. I see Lord Heseltine crept out of the Natural History Museum this morning. Well, he's not very nice about me either, so it's okay. And of course, you've got the Liberal Democrats pushing for a second referendum. Why is it that people who call themselves liberal are now the most illiberal, intolerant, unpleasant people in the whole of this country? They also, of course, have the term Democrat in their title. When Vince was saying the other day maybe we would simply revoke Article 50. They're neither, but they're pushing basically for a second referendum. And of course, we've got that extraordinary, almost unassailable new force in British politics. Poor old Anna Soubry, eh? Yeah, couldn't happen to a nicer person, could it really? Anyway. But they're all talking about a second referendum. There are some that even think, in a last bid, desperate attempt to get her appalling treaty through the House of Commons in the week beginning on the 3rd of June. And I say treaty. People keep calling it Mrs. May's deal. It is not. It is a new, legally binding treaty in international law. It is such a shameful document that it would only have been signed in normal circumstances by a nation that had been defeated in war. That is the extent to which she has humiliated us. Well, another good reason to vote for the Brexit Party is because if we win these elections and win them big, we will kill off forever any prospect of there being a second referendum on the subject we've won already. Another good reason for voting for the Brexit Party in droves next Thursday is it will end quickly the worst premiership since Lord North lost the Americas. She'll be gone. And if we win these elections, perhaps something starts to matter again. A word that used to matter a huge amount. A word that previous generations felt was so important, that we as a country felt was so important, that we actually made huge sacrifices twice in the 20th century to defend the very notion of democracy. It is democracy itself that has been betrayed. We must fight for it. And if we win this, perhaps we'll begin to re-establish a little bit of trust that needs to exist in politics, because we say what we mean in the Brexit Party and we mean what we say, and that matters. And we demand, if we win this election, that representatives from the Brexit Party become part of the government's negotiating team to get us out on the 31st of October. But whatever happens on Thursday, whatever happens in the weeks and months ahead as this new big deadline of the 31st of October hoves into view, whatever happens, the lesson we've learnt from the last 3 miserable years, this awful chapter in our nation's history, is never again, when the 2 mainstream parties tell us, trust us, we will deliver, never again will we trust them. And our job actually is far bigger. It's far bigger than just the European Union. What we've got to do is take on a 2-party system that is letting down this country, and they're serving nothing but themselves. We've got to take them on. We've got to introduce wholesale political reform in this country so that we get a parliament that actually reflects the will of the people, rather than a parliament that has done as this one has done and betray the will of the people. We have a huge amount of work to do, but I'm optimistic, I'm upbeat, I'm no longer angry, because I'm part of something whereby I believe we can change politics for good. So let's be optimistic, let's be upbeat, let's spread that message. So let me ask you, with just a few days ago, are you with us? Yeah. Will you go out and vote for us next Thursday? Yeah. Will you go out and campaign and tell your friends and family to go out and vote for us next Thursday? Are we going to win a great victory next Thursday? Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Pretty warm out there. Thank you. Thank you. Hello, how are you? Good to see you.
See you later.
Absolutely.
Wow. I told you it was going to be good, didn't I? He hasn't lost any of that fire. Thank you, Nigel. Well, we've got some questions. We've got some questions for the panel and for Nigel. But disappointingly, Nigel, no marriage proposals. So the first question, and if this is you, give us a wave. Max from West Sussex. If he's here, thank you, Max. This one I think would be for Nigel. How quickly can we prepare the party for a general election?
Well, it's a good question, because I think the odds of an autumn general election are much higher now than they were. I'd put them at about 50-50, given where we are at the moment. As I said to you, we are just 5 weeks old. The thrilling thing is that well over 100,000 people have now become our registered supporters, so we are the fastest growing political party, I think, frankly, that's ever been seen, because the ones that joined with Corbyn only paid £3 a pop. Our people are paying 25 quid, and they mean it, and I'm very excited about that. Very excited about that. There's a lot to do. As soon as this election is over, we have got to focus our minds on Peterborough. The Peterborough by-election takes place on the 6th of June. Being a new party gives us some disadvantages in that we haven't got data. There's a huge amount of work to do on the ground, but we'll go all out for Peterborough. And as far as a general election is concerned, I can tell you that already through the website, and if you want to apply, it's thebrexitparty.org, already 1,300 people have applied to become general election candidates. I haven't had a chance to do much more than have a quick flick through some of them, but I can tell you they are all of the quality, the caliber, and the integrity of the people I'm sharing this platform with here this afternoon. And you can rest assured, we will be ready.
Okay, thank you, Nigel. Next question is Justin from Wallingham. Give us a wave if you're here. Nigel, any thoughts on Boris? And how will the Brexit Party deal with it if he becomes leader of the Tories?
Well, look, all this talk, all this speculation about who is to become the next Tory party leader, and Boris is the favourite with the grassroots. And Boris is very entertaining. Of that, there's no question. But back to what I said at the end of my speech, Boris Johnson wrote again and again in his Telegraph article that he thought the withdrawal agreement, the new treaty, he described it as vassalage for our country. He said we'd become a slave state. In fact, he talked about it perhaps in even fruitier language. He's good at that, of course, but in even fruitier language than I've talked about it. And then what happened? Then what happened on the third time it came back to the House of Commons, having said all of those things and having been talked to about the unity of the Conservative Party, he voted for it. And I would say this, actually, loyalty to your principles, loyalty to your conscience, loyalty to your country should come way above loyalty to your party. So the truth is, if Boris or any of the others become leaders, unless they tell us unequivocally they're going to scrap the treaty, unless they tell us unequivocally that they've had a chat with Peter Wiltshire about negotiating tactics, and they're going to go and say we're leaving on the 31st of October and that's the end of it. If you want a trade deal, come and talk to us. And do you know something? Learning, having trusted Mrs. May after her Lancaster House speech, even if Boris or another leader said that, I still would not believe them. How could I, given the history?
Now, here's a great question. Alan from Camberley. And thank you, Alan. Now, many of us in the Brexit Party, including myself, have served in the armed forces. And after revelations in the Telegraph this morning, I think this is a very relevant question for Nigel. What would be your stance on Northern Ireland, Iraq and Afghanistan veterans still being prosecuted after all these years?
You do it.
Just give Nigel a break. I think there is an unbelievable hypocrisy here. We have given immunity to all the IRA terrorists, and our own armed forces, of which I've been escorted ably by one, Dickie Bird, a green jacket, are still vulnerable from prosecution based on basically an appearance or in an area where they were under the command of the Queen and the country, and they should get blanket immunity.
Okay, final two questions. Thank you, Robert, for that. Marion from Weybridge, if you're here, Marion. If the Brexit Party wins the European elections, what kind of pressure will this put upon Parliament and upon the government?
I think Anne Widdecombe summed this up best. And isn't it great to have Anne Widdecombe with the Brexit? Fantastic. I mean, I tell you what, whatever they think about me giving speeches and having a go at Herman Van Rompuy and the rest over in Brussels, just wait till Anne gets there, crikey. But Anne's point from the start has been this. She said from the beginning that she believed the Brexit Party would win these elections and win them well. She said from the beginning that would then send a message to the Labour and Conservative parties, either go for what the country wants, and what we want is to get this agony over with. What we want is to leave. What we want is to get on with the rest of our lives. That is what the country wants. And her message is, she says, if the two parties don't get that message, don't change immediately to wanting a WTO Brexit, then it's very simple. Either we leave, or at the next general election, they leave.
Okay, final question, and it's a very brief one, from Ben from Pirbright. If you're here, Ben, thank you very much. Thank you, Ben. Nigel, what's your favourite beer?
Well, of course, coming from Kent, I'm bound to say Shepherd and Neame. But the truth of it is, I realised at Christmas that I hadn't yet fought my biggest political battle. I could see this betrayal was coming down the line, and I realised I had a hell of a lot of work to do in a very short space of time. And I don't know whether any of you have been following my activities, but I'm crisscrossing the country on a daily basis, even by my standards, working pretty extraordinary hours. And so, to that end, after 35 years of adult life, not doing very many things that are recommended by the British Medical Association, I have actually been on a bit of a fitness kick, exercising, and the truth of it is, I'm off the beer until Thursday.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're reaching the end now, but please don't rush away. It's been absolutely fantastic. I want to thank you for coming, you for being involved. Let's have another round of applause for our fantastic candidates.
And well done to our chairman, been great, really good.
Thanks, Nigel. And of course, a massive cheer for Nigel Farage.
Up we go. All fills around, that's it.
Okay, I think you know the drill. What do we want?
Brexit!
What do we want?
Brexit!
What do we want?
Brexit!
When do we want it?
Now!
When do we want it?
Now!
When do we want it? Thank you, folks. Thanks for coming. God bless you. Safe journey home. Thank you. Thank you.